This is Gareth Southgate, and this is the Three Lions podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions podcast. My name's Russell Osborne and I'm glad to be bringing you another of our European Championship lookbacks. Both 1980 and 1988 are still available to listen to via your chosen podcast platform and indeed threelionspodcast.com. And so far the reaction has been great. We've made it to 1992. Hot on the heels of Italia 90, expectations would have been high. Although Bobby Robson had departed to PSV Eindhoven and had been replaced by Graham Taylor, who had previously been in charge at Aston Villa. Many were sceptical about the appointment, despite the fact that he'd led England to only one defeat in his first 23 matches. England qualified from Group 7 ahead of the Republic of Ireland, Poland and Turkey, winning 3 and drawing 3, of which 2 of those draws were 1-1 home and away with the Republic of Ireland. Sweden was chosen over Spain to host the event. Following a decision made by UEFA Executive Committee, Spain was at a disadvantage as they had already been chosen to host the Expo in 1992 and the 92 Summer Olympic Games. Once again, but for the last time, it was an 8-nation, 2-group tournament that began on the 10th and ended on the 26th of June. Now, because of the Yugoslav war, Denmark were called in at the last minute, as UEFA disqualified the Yugoslavs, and with Denmark being the runners-up to them in qualifying, they took their place. And famously, players cancelled their holidays and headed to Sweden. England, well, they would have faced Yugoslavia. Graham Taylor's squad included 20 players. 2 goalkeepers, Chris Woods and Nigel Martin. Defenders, Keith Curle, Stuart Pearce, Martin Keown, Des Walker, Mark Wright and Tony Dorigo. Midfielders, David Platt, Trevor Steven, Andy Sinton, Carlton Palmer, Neil Webb, Paul Merson, Tony Daly and David Batty. And his 4 forwards were Nigel Clough, Gary Lineker, Alan Smith and Alan Shearer. Liverpool's Rob Jones was expected to make the squad. However, shortly before the tournament he pulled out with shin splints. Lee Dixon came in as a replacement, but then withdrew because of a knee injury. There was no Chris Waddle, who was pulling up trees in France for Marseille, and Taylor went on record as saying Waddle didn't want to play for England. And no John Barnes, he was injured in a friendly against Finland, and no Peter Beardsley or Ian Wright, who had scored 29 goals that season. Terry Butcher, Peter Shilton and Brian Robson, all stalwarts under Bobby Robson, well, they had all retired. Paul Gascoigne, he was the big name, but had injured himself in the 1991 FA Cup final ahead of his move to Lazio. Back home, the BBC, following the success of Nessun Dorma as their intro for the World Cup, well again, they went classical. Whilst ITV went with the more punchy You Are the Number One by a band called Union. Jason Broom is an England fan and he went to Sweden. I'd like to welcome to the Three Lions podcast another England supporter who was there for a European Championship. We're going back 28 years for this one, 1992, Sweden. I'd like to welcome Jason Broom. Hello there.
Hi.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. Yeah.
How long have you been following England?
I started going in 1990. I got let down for Italia 90, as you were saying earlier on. Like everyone wants to go and then they never bother. So I thought right after that, I thought I'd start going. So I suppose it'll be nearly 29 years now. So yeah, I've missed a few tournaments, but yeah, I've done my fair share, I suppose. Really, this days, I suppose it's a lot easier than what it was probably when I first started going with the introduction of EasyJet and places like that, and the internet as well. I suppose, Russell, that makes things so much easier. It really does.
So take us back to 1992. How old were you, if you don't mind me asking?
I was 19 at the time, and obviously we'd done the qualifying games. I think it was like obviously the Republic of Ireland. We had Turkey, and we had Poland in our group. I believe we topped the group, but back then they didn't always play all the qualifying games at the same time, and I think the Republic of Ireland drew with Turkey or something along those lines. So I think all we needed was either a draw or a win against Poland, and obviously, and we qualified, I think, top of the group, if memory serves me. The last group game was, here we go, in 1991 in November, and it was away in Poznan, and we drew 1-1, and Gary Lineker got the equaliser.
Okay.
So we qualified for Sweden for 92.
So had you been to away games before?
Only all the qualifiers leading up to that one, really, sort of thing. That's when I first started going after like 1990. And yeah, it was an eye opener. I was young at the time, I suppose. Obviously, Poland it's changed a lot since then, sort of thing. I suppose when we first went there, it was like a lot of border crossings. We went on a coach. You know, unless you flew at British Airways, there's not many more ways of getting across there. It was just run by a guy called Paul Hartley, which is a relative, and it was £60 return, and he ran a coach there. It was cheap and cheerful, I'd say. That's probably the best way of describing it, really.
And so you got the buzz for it through that.
Yeah, definitely, sort of thing. We'd gone to Turkey the same year. Yeah, we had won 1-0 there. Dennis Wise scored. Yeah, it was a lively few days over there. People didn't really realize how bad it was until the two Leeds fans got stabbed, I suppose, sort of thing. And memory serves, I think the third time England played there, it was a complete blanket ban on England fans travelling across there. But we had gone across there and we'd won 1-0. That was the main thing. It was 3 points in the bag, and I think we were still top of the group, if memory serves me. It was my first major tournament. And I started going with a lad from Leeds that I'd met on the coach in 1991, and we've remained good friends ever since then.
That is something that always tends to come up when talking about England. You are never alone when you follow England. It's a great opportunity to make friends, and I know that from personal experience.
Oh yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. To me, I think probably the two highlights of probably following the national team is I've been to a lot of countries I'd probably never have gone to. Maybe in later life, I suppose, when travel's become a bit easier. But I suppose, yeah, back then, sort of thing, like nobody ever went to Poland. And prior to Sweden in 92, they played a friendly in Russia and Hungary that we went to as well. And obviously going to Russia sort of back nearly 30 years ago, I think the Iron Curtain had only just dropped. And it was absolutely fascinating. And I suppose the second thing, Russell, was meeting people from different clubs, and I suppose and just staying good friends. And I suppose back in those days, you never had mobile phones or the internet, so you normally just always grab like their mum's telephone number, or if they lived on their own, their number.
Yeah,
that's how it that's how it worked, I suppose. Really, so it's a walk in the park these days. It really is, isn't it? So,
we don't know how easy we've got it now, do we?
No. Often we see like younger people at games, and like me and my friend from Leeds would say, like, we met 30 years ago, and they used to say, well, how did you keep in touch? And the guy that ran the trips, he just put out a mailing list, really, and then he'd send a letter through. We'll just pick up points going down through the country of various pubs or service stations. And you just went to that particular pickup point and just prayed to God that he turned up, really. So, it was simpler, and in some ways it was probably better as well. I don't want to see everything through rose-tinted glasses, but yeah, it probably was. It was more of a challenge, I would say, really. So yeah, without a doubt.
Well, you'd put in the miles there. Going to somewhere like Turkey, Poland was a little bit further than going to Sweden for the tournament. How did you go about getting tickets, and how did you go about sorting out travel for that one?
Right. Well, tickets, obviously, you went through the England Travel Club. I think they started it in 1990. It was like £10 a year. It was. Jill Smith, to the older people, obviously would know her. But what happened was everyone joined in 1990, and then everyone sort of joined in like 1992. Well, the FA, they sort of, once they got wise to it, but I got a feeling after that they started doing a 2-year membership thing. But basically, you just joined the travel club and you got the tickets through there. But I think for the qualifying games, yeah, we'd have probably bought tickets through the travel club for them, and that's how you done it, really. You got to bear in mind back then, Russell, it was only an 8-team tournament, and it was sort of done and dusted in a fortnight. I think regarding England, because we got knocked out after the group games, I think we were at home in sort of 8 or 9 days. So, it's not like the Euros now of sort of 24, 32 teams or whatever, 24 teams. It was a short tournament. It was like your group game, semi-final and the final.
That's right.
And regarding travel, well, the guy that ran the coach, he just like hired like three camper vans, and really, if you had a driving license, we just took turns in driving, really.
Really?
Yeah, it's a different era. I think we went across to Germany, then we went up through Denmark, and obviously we went across into Sweden, that's how we done it. It was all quite a bit more simpler, I suppose, back then, if that's the right word. So yeah, that was travel and tickets sorted out. And I think you had, I can't remember how you got. I think you were given vouchers for the semi-finals and the finals, but I think back then you had to sort of cash it in, and you had to pay for your ticket there and then. Where like now everything's paid for up in advance.
Yeah.
And obviously, if we don't progress, you get your money back, which I think is a better system, because you haven't got to worry about the finances for tickets, I suppose. So yeah, that's how it was pretty much done.
If you're saying you're going in camper vans, were you camping there, or did you hook up in Malmo for accommodation?
No, we actually stayed in the camper vans. We did, there's probably sort of 5 or 6 of us in there. Obviously the weather was quite nice, and people would sleep outside, or it wasn't an organised tour. It was just lads in 3 camper vans, I suppose. Yeah. And also you got to bear in mind then, back in the summer, like in Sweden, it got sort of dark about 1 o'clock and it got light again about 2. I wouldn't say that's exactly how it was, but you didn't get much sort of nighttime there, not really. That kind of threw you a little bit as well. But no, we stayed on a campsite in Malmo, Sababa, I forget. They dubbed it Campsite Hell for various reasons.
Right.
But that's where a lot of the England fans stayed. And then when we went up to Stockholm for the 3rd group game, I think we just stayed in the campsite there. I can't remember which one, but I think on the way up, because we had camper vans, we literally just used to park up anywhere really, and then just sleep the night. And I think sometimes we'd get moved on in the morning and off we'd go, really. But it was quite a clean and organised country, and everyone was quite civil.
Yeah.
Maybe just a bit too young to appreciate it, really, I suppose.
It was a tournament that was a little bit disjointed going into it, wasn't it? Because of Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia, or the fall of Yugoslavia, I guess, the dissolve of Yugoslavia, who were disqualified, and Denmark were their replacement, weren't they?
Yeah, I think they came in literally about 10 days before the actual tournament started, because I remember when the draw was made, like we avoided Germany, we avoided Holland, and we avoided Scotland in our group. And I think it was like Denmark, France, and Yugoslavia. So, on the back of like Italia 90, you fancy the chances of getting through. You really did, sort of thing. Like, got a cutting upstairs on a photograph album, and it was the front page of the Sun, and it's Laurie McMenemy and Graham Taylor sort of marching up this hill with a big George cross, and it says, "Sit back and watch England win the Euros."
Oh dear!
They could have got it much more wrong if they tried, but no, you were kind of adamant. I know there was a few injuries leading up to. Obviously, the main one was Gascoigne, wasn't it? I think John Barnes got injured as well. I think Mark Wright was also injured. Gary Lineker obviously didn't fire on all fours, and also as well, I think like Peter Shilton. There was 2 or 3 that actually had retired after the World Cup as well. I think I did read somewhere in the actual last game against Sweden, I think only 3 of the original people from Italia 90 were in that team. It was a totally different team, and like you say, I think all the preparation he had done into playing Yugoslavia all went out the window when Denmark sort of took their place. Literally the last minute, it really was.
That's right, because that was our first game was against the new incoming boys with Denmark on the 11th of June in Malmo. So you were there then for that game?
Oh yeah, we were there, and obviously because it was so close and it was Denmark, there was thousands come up. Well, a lot of people had actually stayed in Denmark. A lot of England fans did.
Okay,
and had crossed over for both the games, because the other thing on the lead up to Sweden '92 was like the prices of everything. I think the Sun ran a page saying how much everything costs. Obviously, they probably overinflated it a little bit. Somewhere in Denmark and had crossed over. But yeah, all of a sudden, I suppose, instead of having maybe 3,000 or 4,000 Yugoslavians there, we were playing Denmark and it was right on their doorstep. And yeah, they flooded over. They really did. In our arrogance or whatever, we just presumed we were going to beat them. I think really it was a foregone conclusion, and 3 points. I think Sweden had played France earlier on that day and drew 1-1. If we had got the win, we'd have topped the group, after the first game. But that wasn't to be.
So a point there, and we stayed in Malmo for the second game, which was against France. And the one thing that I always remember when I look back on this particular game is the unseen incident between Stuart Pearce and Basil Bowley, the French defender, who it was just caught on camera where Basil Bowley just headbutted him. Stuart Pearce went down like a sack of potatoes, but then just got straight back up again.
That's right. Yeah, he did sort of thing. And I remember reading an autobiography about him afterwards. He said he let it go sort of thing, because if he had never, then they'd have dragged up a load of things about him. But whether it's true or not, apparently that Basil Bowley did fax him afterwards and said thanks for the sportsmanship. But yeah, he clattered him a treat. He really did sort of thing. But and in fairness, he got straight back up again. I think also in that game, I think didn't Pearce hit the woodwork as well?
Yes, I think you're right.
Yeah, he did. And so it's the same again. It's like fine margins. If that had gone in, then we'd have probably been sort of top of the group, and it would have taken the pressure off the third game, I suppose.
Yeah, and there was something just one word that you said there, which really takes it to its time. That you said that Basil Bowley faxed Stuart Pearce. I think we might have to put something in for those of you that aren't aware what a fax machine is. go and ask your parents.
yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I think it just sort of exemplified, or whatever we're looking for, Stuart Pearce on his sort of never die attitude, and his his bulldog spirit maybe, or whatever you're looking for. I don't know. It's I think that came out in Euro 96, didn't it, when he scored the penalty, and the fist clenching and sort of punch in the air or whatever. I think at 6 years is sort of hurt sort of thing finally came out, didn't it? So,
that's right. And then there was that last game in. I
thought it was in Stockholm. I'm not too sure. I thought we played up in Stockholm somewhere, but like you say, everyone had to sort of travel up, and it was a game we sort of really needed to win, sort of thing. I remember David Platt scoring after 4 minutes, and everyone just going absolutely berserk because we'd finally sort of scored a goal. Sort of thing. Third game in, and we'd finally scored one. But I think second half, we kind of we wilted a little bit, sort of thing. And I remember sort of Taylor saying the players were just tired. They really were and obviously, then Bowley scored the wonder goal, and we lost 2-1, didn't we?
Yes, and it will be sort of forever remembered, I guess, for that goal, Thomas Brolin's goal. But Gary Lineker's last game, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, sort of thing.
How did you feel when, obviously, we needed to score, but from the stands, when you saw Gary Lineker going off, I think he threw his captain's armband to someone, and then you see Alan Smith come on.
You couldn't really believe it. I don't profess to be like a football manager or knows like sedition. He was like our leading goal scorer at the time, or as he was, obviously he was after the record, and we needed to win, and you sort of dragged him off, and you couldn't believe it. And it wasn't like he was being replaced by, no respect to Smith, with someone superior, but he was like the sort of the best around at the time, and you thought that you'd have brought another striker on to sort of play alongside him, needing the result. Like, it was a sad way to end his career, really. It was, in Italia 90, he'd been so good, and so he was in Mexico in 86 as well when he got the hat trick. He'd popped up with so many goals, and I suppose his discipline record was fantastic, and he was media friendly sort of thing. He was approachable. He was, he had everything really. He'd played in some big clubs in Europe. You had to see him sort of being pulled off. You just couldn't believe it. You really couldn't, sort of thing. You just kind of like shook your head in disbelief.
Yeah. And you mentioned the Sun newspaper there. I did see the Sun when we'd gone out of the tournament, we'd lost to Sweden there. One of their headlines was Swedes 2, Turnips 1, wasn't it? And that was when they really started to turn the screw on Graham Taylor, wasn't it?
Yeah, they did. He didn't help himself. It happened to Bobby Robson 4 years previously, didn't it, after Germany 88. He kind of redeemed himself after Italia 90. People kind of forgot about that, but yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. They hounded him, sort of thing. Yeah, some of it was a bit below the mark, I think, really, because that's modern, or that was journalism back then, I suppose. Really, I don't think he helped himself, and I think Laurie McMenemy said in the book a few years later that he couldn't believe taking Lineker off, but I suppose he wasn't the manager, so. Maybe the beginning and the end, I suppose, really. Or it didn't help anyway, without a shadow of a doubt. It was a bad decision, it really was, sort of thing. And it's what it'll always be known as the turnip one end. There's a picture of a turnip with his face sort of photographed into it, I suppose.
That's right.
It kind of stuck with him as well, I suppose, really, didn't it?
Unfortunately, yes. So, I mean, of the time, sort of late 80s, early 90s, unfortunately, sort of hooliganism or fans fighting amongst themselves or with each other was around. Did you experience some of that?
Yeah. The fan base has changed over the years, Russell. It really has. Like, you go back 30 years when I started going, I flicked through some photograph albums, and it was predominantly all males that went to the game, between sort of 18 and 40s. You had very few women at England games. You had a few, sort of thing. My mate he nailed it on the head a few years ago, and he said, like, now you've probably got maybe sort of like 10% that will cause a bit of trouble, and that's it. Where back then you had like 10% who looked for trouble, and the other 90% were obviously happy to join in. They really were, and unfortunately that's just the way it was, sort of thing. But the fan base has changed, definitely. But yeah, same with, I think Italia 90 was probably just as much trouble, if not more, but because the team done well, it kind of went on the back burner. But I suppose because in Sweden, the team didn't do very well, the trouble was quite prominent. They put in the beer tents in Malmo, which in all fairness seemed like a good idea. Obviously it was something that seriously backfired, I suppose, really.
Was that almost like a fan park or something?
It was like a fan park. I wouldn't say cheap drink, but it was probably subsidised. I suppose it wasn't a good idea. In hindsight's a wonderful thing, I suppose. Yeah, there was a bit of crowd trouble over there, without a doubt. I did remember reading in one of the papers when I came home with the Sun, I think the Swedes were just glad that we got knocked out and we were going home, which was sad, I suppose, but that was just their view on it.
Was it just England fans, or was it
not
others?
Really, no, I think obviously Germany and Holland, they were in the second group, and they'd clashed somewhere. It was always the England fans that seemed to make the headlines. The biggest difference I find is, like, if you have 40 Scottish fans in a bar and something gets damaged, it's just Scots having a bit of fun, and they seem to get away with it. They wear their kilts, and when it's English fans, I suppose, we're sort of dubbed as hooligans. But no, we weren't the only ones. I think when we was up in Stockholm, the Black Army or whatever the Swedish hooligans were called, because England were in town, they came looking as well. So obviously they weren't disappointed. So no, it wasn't only England fans. And I think because it was only an 18 tournament, the focus is on the 8 teams, I suppose. Yeah, so it's of England's reputation. It was always going to be like that, I suppose. Maybe not so much as these days, then, yeah, definitely.
When we lost to Sweden, the team were obviously out. Were you straight back home, or did you get to see any of the other games?
No, to be honest, a lot of people just went home. It was expensive over there. There was ways around it, like you could have barbecues and you could do things like that. You're young at the time, like it's 30 years ago, so obviously, you see things differently now. The country was very pretty, and it was clean and tidy, and everything run like clockwork. It comes at a price, and I suppose, yeah, it's like any Scandinavian country, even in these days. And it wasn't like it was like a coastal resort where you could sort of go and maybe sit by the beach for a few days. Our particular group just headed straight home. I think we got up there after the Sweden game and we were on our toes. And I think that probably applied to sort of 95% of the England fans. Yeah. We were poor. There'd been a lot of trouble. It was expensive. And there was no seaside town to go to. So, yeah, people went over. Yeah. So,
you would have got home to I guess, watch or see the surprise final.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think we've maybe seen one of the semi-finals and maybe two of them. But like I said to you, Russell, like the whole thing was done and dusted within 2 weeks. It probably sort of took us a couple of days to get home. But yeah, I remember watching the final. I think it was on a Sunday evening. Everyone just presumed Germany were going to win. You just sort of took it as read, really. No, for Denmark to win it, yeah, it was quite good, yeah.
Them and I guess Greece in one of the later European Championship finals.
That was, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, when the Greeks won it. Another one you'd have never sort of ever put your money on that in a million years, would you?
No.
It is good, yeah. I think with the European Championship, I think sometimes it's better than the World Cup, because in the World Cup you do have a lot of teams are never going to win it, but I think maybe in the European Championships, probably I'd say half the teams, or maybe a little bit less, in a European Championship have got a realistic chance of winning it. Maybe in the World Cup it's maybe only sort of 20-25%.
There's less filler teams, as it were,
exactly.
Isn't it?
It normally is quite a strong tournament. Yes, I suppose to see Greece win it in 2004, that was it gives us hope that it has.
Well, that's right. So surprises do happen, and could it happen? Could we win it?
I think we got as good a chance as anyone, really. You got to bear in mind our first 3 games are at Wembley, aren't they? So that's got to give us a bit of an advantage, really.
Yeah.
And then after that, I think it's just getting a bit of luck. It really is. If you go back through all the previous tournaments, we've either been unlucky or we've just been absolutely rubbish. Like I'd say, like Italia 90, we were unlucky. We hit the woodwork, and and when the ball like sort of ricocheted off Parker into the back, into the net. Where in Sweden we were just poor, we really were, sort of thing. And I said, obviously we didn't qualify in 94, and so it was in 96 we were a little bit unlucky as well, I suppose, really, weren't we? So it's just, but yeah, I like to think we are. Yeah, I think we got as good a chance as anyone. I really do. And I think with a front line of Sterling, Kane, and Rashford, we've got to be able to shout. We really have. Like,
I hope so. I like your optimism.
Yeah, we've got to be being an England fan. Really,
yes.
In all fairness, you look at the World Cup last year, Russell, and we were sort of, I know the last second 45 minutes we sort of collapsed, but prior to that sort of thing, we're going to our first World Cup in, I don't know, 40 odd years. I don't know exactly how many it was, but yeah, it's quite a while, like it, 1966. Yeah, more than that, 50 years, I suppose. Like, we got a good as chance as anyone. You got the semis and the finals there at Wembley as well, like, haven't they? I think if we can get out of the group and negotiate our way through the round of 16 and quarterfinals, then who knows? It could be our year, couldn't it? But you never know with England, do you?
No. Well, let's hope so. Let's hope it's better than 92. Put it that way.
I got a pretty good feeling it will be, without a shadow of a doubt.
Thank you very much for all those memories, good and maybe not so good memories. Jason Broom, thank you very much.
That's not a problem. Nice talking to you. Okay, Russell?
Thank you.
Aye, thanks very much. Bye.
Cheers. I'm sure you'll agree, another great look back on a European Championships that England were involved in. Although, not the success story we all dream about. Still, the next episode should be a little different. Thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. Cheers to Jason Broom for his time and his memories. Now, don't forget, all the previous Three Lions podcasts are available, including the Euro look back of 1980 and 1988. Just search your podcast provider or take a look at threelionspodcast.com. Plus, I'd be grateful if you could leave a positive review on the likes of iTunes or Spotify. Just means that the podcast gets a little more exposure and more people have the opportunity to find it. My name's Russell Osborne, and until the next time, cheers.